I want everything to be perfect before something happens. That's how I am. I want everything to be, look, as soon as everything gets all lined up, gets all perfect, then this will happen. And by doing that, I'm not really giving the Lord a chance to tickle me. I'm not really giving, stay with me, by saying, okay, as soon as this, then this, and then this, As soon as I get my slippers on, my feet will be warm, I'm gonna go to Daddy's, I'm gonna make a pot pie. What I'm saying is I'm always waiting for everything to be perfect before I live my life.
So imagine you're dealing with someone who's hoarding. Now, people who are hoarding are often older or neurologically damaged, or they have obsessive compulsive disorder. But then you walk into their house and there's like 10,000 things in their house. There's maybe 100 boxes, and you open up a box, and in the box there's some pens and some old passports and some checks and their collection of silver dollars and some hypodermic needles and some dust and a dead mouse and there's boxes and boxes and boxes like that in the house. It's absolute chaos in there. Absolute chaos, not order, chaos. And then you think, is that their house, or is that their being? Is that their mind? And the answer is, there's no difference. There's no difference. So, I could say, well, if you want to organize your psyche, you could start by organizing your room. If that would be easier, because maybe you're a more concrete person and you need something concrete to do. So you go clean up under your bed and you make your bed and you organize the papers on your desk, and you think, well, just exactly what are you organizing?
What does discipline really mean? Besides waking up early, and how do I employ it to all aspects of my life? What does it really mean?
Yes, discipline, it does start with waking up early. It really does. But that is just the beginning. And I always say that discipline is the root of all good qualities, but you have to absolutely apply it to things outside of just waking up early. It's everything. It's working out every day, making yourself stronger and faster and more flexible and healthier. Discipline is eating the right foods to fuel your system. It's about disciplining your emotions so you can make good decisions. It's about having the discipline to control your ego so your ego doesn't get out of hand and control you. It's about treating people the way you would want to be treated, and doing the tasks that you don't necessarily want to do, but that will help you or help your team. It's about facing your fears. It's so often the easy path that calls to us to be weak for that moment, to break down for that moment, to give in to the desire and the short-term gratification. But the discipline will not allow that. The discipline calls for strength and fortitude and will. It won't accept weakness. It won't tolerate another breakdown. The discipline can seem like it's your worst enemy, but the reality is, discipline is your best friend. It will take care of you like nothing else can. And it'll put you on that path. The path to strength and health and intelligence and happiness. And most important, it'll put you on that path to freedom.
What could you do to improve yourself? Well, let's step one step backwards. The first question might be, why should you even bother improving yourself? And I think the answer to that is something like, so you don't suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe so others don't have to either. It's something like that. Like there's a real injunction at the bottom of it. It's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. Now, and you could say, well, I don't care about that, but that's actually not true. You actually do care about that, because if you're in pain, you will care about it. And so you do care about it, even if it's just that negative way, It's very rare that you can find someone who's in excruciating pain who would ever say, well, it would be no better if I was out of this. Sort of pain is one of those things that brings the idea that it would be better if it didn't exist along with it. It's incontrovertible.
Then this woman from Goodwill. So Goodwill is a secondhand clothing franchise in the US. She's like, how can we grow our brand? And I'm like, how can you not grow your brand? You have like 300 stores. At one store, triple your prices. At one store, offer gift wrapping. At one store, offer recycling services. At one store, offer co-working space. And she's furiously scribbling down all these notes. She's like, can you come do like a workshop with us to help us get more ideas? I'm like, I just gave you 10 ideas. Go do those, and then maybe we can do a workshop. And I remember thinking how crazy it was that people seem to be much more interested in collecting ideas than actually doing anything with them. That most people, for most ideas, either don't do anything with it or will slowly make a little bit of progress over time. But people who are incredibly action-oriented, they take these massive surges of action right away, where they take a massive amount of action right away and surge forward on an idea. So I wanted to study this a little bit more and started looking at all kinds of stories. I mean, if you look at my browser history, you'll find a lot of weird stuff there. Everything from a guy who got a job from a Snapchat filter, to someone who made this Spanish Bible app, to someone who made a restaurant in China out of an old 737 jet, all kinds of stuff. But I want to share with you 3 of the primary lessons that we learned in doing this research. So 1, action is a muscle. So much like some people exercise their biceps, right? Not me, but some people. You can exercise these action muscles. So think of it like playing a musical instrument. So the first time, if you were to sit down and try a piano for the first time, right? It takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus to think about what notes you're playing and make sure you're playing the right notes. But the more you practice it and the more you get used to it, it becomes this muscle memory, right? Where you don't have to think about it. It's the same thing with action. I'll give you an example of a guy who has huge action muscles, like huge, believe me. It's a guy who's at this pool party, right? And at this pool party, there's a bunch of these white dove pool rafts. And he's like, oh, this is really cool. He's like, I wonder if there's a pink flamingo version of these. And so he Googles it and it doesn't exist. And for most people, they would just kind of let it be there. But he decides, you know what? I'm just gonna Google China manufacturer, get on the phone with somebody like, hey, China, can you design this like pink flamingo raft? I want it to be this big, whatever, blah, blah, blah. 6 weeks later, this thing shows up at his house. He has a pool party with it. Everyone falls in love with this thing. And he launches giantflamingo.com, where he's made absurd amounts of money selling these pink flamingo rafts because he just exercises that muscle so much that it was natural for him to do that. So first is that action is a muscle. The second thing is that it tends to be when we have an idea we're really passionate about, an idea that we think can be great, we always say like, oh, I want to set aside time later to sort that out, right? Like, oh, I'm going to set aside time when the sun is shining and I have the right energy, inshallah, where I'm going to be able to make this happen, right? What happens is a week passes, a month passes, inshallah, inshallah, and we don't actually take action on our ideas. And so we need to commit to taking action right away on things. Third thing is that it's actually, when we have an idea ourselves, it's actually really hard to come up with actions for our own ideas. But when it's somebody else's idea, it's really easy to be like, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, right? Like think back to that Goodwill woman of all the different things. And so the key is setting yourself up to make sure that you're getting that feedback